Now I'm nervous.
Welcome to stage 1 of the stage brief. In tonight's course of fire, we're going to go over the new USPSA classification system, Dave and I's experience at the US Extreme Open, and then some of the lessons that we've taken into training from that experience. My name is Josh Morgan. I'm a production master in USPSA, and I'll be your host tonight.
Hello, Josh. Right. Are we supposed to say hello? You just
go ahead and introduce yourselves.
I mean, my name's Tom. I'm a low A-class shooter. I'm just even lucky to be on this podcast.
Jesus.
I shoot carry optics, A-class, unranked in production, but I almost beat Josh.
There you go.
A few times.
All right, my name's Dave. I'm a carry optics Grandmaster. And I beat Josh and Tom consistently whenever they show up.
Whenever we show up.
That's Dave's singular claim to fame. All right, guys. So, new classification system in USPSA just got released. It got leaked on Reddit before the official announcement. So, there was a firestorm of memes and shit posting long before we actually knew what was actually involved in this. So reading the official release, it sounds like they are removing B, C, and D flags, which for the uninitiated or the uninformed are the flags that drop off classifiers based on a certain percent. So if you are an A-class shooter like Tom, any score that you have that's below 70% won't count as a valid score in your most recent 8. And so they are removing that now. So pretty much every score that you get above a 2% threshold will now count against your classification or count for your classification depending on where you're at. So we're not really sure how this is going to impact USPSA. There's a lot to unpack with that, but I personally am leaning towards the not liking it. Dave, how are you feeling about it since this can't impact you in any way?
It doesn't bother me a whole lot. I think you're going to see a lot of people trying to game it more than they ever have possibly. I think a lot of people aren't going to like it, so that's where they're going to try and push the issue sometimes.
What is the B? I see, like, I'm looking at my record, and I see B scores, which is, like, below, right? Below the 70%. I don't see, what is C and D scores? I don't see those.
So C
I just have
is...
E, which is expired.
C is, like, below your threshold in a different division. So, like, I have limited scores that are thrown out because they're underneath the A-class threshold that they're automatically...
What's D?
That's a great question. But it has to do
so
with,
like basically,
low scores.
Basically, like the scores that normally don't count will count, and it's
Correct.
the last 8. So yeah, obviously, if you're Dave and you're GM, who fucking cares? Sorry, can we curse? Who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of hard because for somebody like me who like is more casual, obviously I'm trying to get better, but I can't dedicate my life to this. Like, the classification, like, was a big deal. Like, I started at C class. You know, I tried not to get started D class. Started C class, got B class. I guess fairly quickly. And then, like, stuck in B class and finally made A class. And, like, that's a goal, right? I'm not winning matches. I'm not winning my division. I mean, in our area, there's a lot of shooters, and there's a lot of good shooters. So it's not like, you know. So that's, like, fun to see, like, the progress. At the same time, like, I guess the point is like there's like too many GMs, right? Is that the idea? Because if that's the idea, then I can understand it, because I feel like if you're looking at like basketball, like to make it to the NBA, you got to be the elite of the elite, and if you're trying to make this like a little bit more mainstream, GM should be like elite of the elite, like the ones that are winning national championships, the ones like 95% and up, right? That's like very hard. I'm not saying it's easy, but like I would have to see the ratio, I guess. Maybe there's not as many GMs as I think, but...
So Jay Slater was on Steve Anderson's podcast to talk about this, and essentially their thought process is it won't change the number of GMs, it will change who is rewarded with GM. So you won't be rewarded by sporadic high level performance. You'll be rewarded by consistent performance. And so they are saying that they're going to adjust the high hit factors to make them, I guess, what we would practically consider easier. So they are going to bring down some of those high hit factors. But they said roughly 1.5% to 2% of the shooters in a division are supposed to be GM. Is the number they were throwing
supposed
out.
To be, or they are?
So carry optics, I think, is 1.5%. It might be 2%. Oh. He said it in the podcast. So that's the number they're trying to maintain, because they found statistically in carry optics match results, that division in particular is spread very nicely for class versus match result. And I think that's what the ultimate goal here is to make the classification system line up with match results.
Yeah, so maybe there's not as many GMs. I will say, like, it is weird if you look at nationals, like carry optic nationals results, and like you have a lot of GMs obviously that show up there, but their scores are like lower than a GM score per the classification system. I don't know, like, so there should almost be like another level, I feel like, but also I think you should renew, because I noticed that some people, as they get like older or don't shoot as much, they request to step down. So I know my idea is to, like, every year you kind of have to reclassify. You would get bumped down. Like, if Dave, like, next year Dave gets bumped down to M and has to reclassify as GM, like, is that a big deal for Dave? Like, not really. I mean, I'm speaking for you, so I don't really know. But he's a GM, right? He's a GM level. But like, if I make M class, like, my skill is not M class. So for me to make M class again, it would like be luck. So I feel like, I don't know, Dave, would that bother? I mean, do you have any ideas?
I don't think it would necessarily bother me. I mean, I'm kind of with you that a lot of people are just looking at the letter, so they can work hard and classify up to M or GM, and then if they're only shooting at a or B class level and go to a competition and consistently beat because they're forcing themselves to shoot against M class and GM people, then they're just doing it for different reasons. And other people might just be happy where they're at, competing against A class shooters if they're shooting at an A class level.
Right, and I know, Josh, you're just like, if you're not winning, you're not winning. But, like, let me ask you this, actually, Dave. Like, and I mean, Josh, too, but, like, you shot the Extreme. I know I'm like, we don't have to jump ahead right away, but you guys shot the Extreme. Josh, I forget your percentage. But, Dave, you didn't shoot, right, you didn't shoot a GM percentage. I mean, you shot against Eric Graffel, like, the best right now. I get, understood. I'm not saying that you did bad, but, like, does that bother you, or is that just, like, who cares, I'm a GM? I won the classification system. That's, like, checked off the list. It doesn't really matter anymore. My next goal is X, to win majors, I guess, or whatever it is.
Yeah, it doesn't really bother me. So it's not every GM and not every shooter is going to shoot at their full capability every single match they go to. Some matches will shoot good, some matches will shoot bad, just like any other sport. Some days it's your day and some days it's not. So it doesn't bother me, really.
All right. I mean, I have no experience.
Yeah, I think what was interesting about the U.S. Extreme in particular is because IPSC doesn't have that classification system that, like, we as Americans are super accustomed to. There's really no preconceived notions of who people are unless you're looking at prior match results. Mm-hmm. And I think there's something to be said about that, because the classification system, in my opinion, is a participation trophy. Like, it's a congratulations for being here and improving along the way. So to try and push classification to mimic match results, I don't really know if that's something that's necessary any more than it already is. Because if you're winning, you're winning. It doesn't matter if you win as a C-class shooter, if you win as a GM. Like, it doesn't matter, right? And so if we're trying to push classification to mimic match results, just use match results. Like, strip the classification system entirely and just make people win. If they care enough and they want to be recognized and they want to get that G card and go off and start their training company and sell their book and their online dry fire courses, then, like, by all means, let them do that.
Well, don't give away our whole plan.
No, that's the whole business model right there. That's the game plan.
Yeah. So, but I guess my issue is I'm A class, but at a major, Like we're shooting IPSC nationals. You're like, you should be happy with a B class finish, quote unquote B class finish. Like that to me, that doesn't make sense. Like it's not like that goal's like too low or not realistic. But like if I'm an A class shooter in the classification system, I should expect to finish A class range at a match. So if I'm finishing if I'm going to majors, and I haven't done it this year, but for example, like last year I was B class, I shot 2 majors, I finished at 63%. Okay, that's still B class, but that's like not where I was finishing at local. So I guess that doesn't like prove my point, but it's just like I barely made it. Like I barely shot B class at majors. Like this the majors coming up, like if I'm A class and I shoot in a B class finish, like to me that means like the classification system's not accurate.
But when you're looking at a B class finish, are you looking at your percent in your division,
Yes.
or are you looking at where you place against other B class shooters?
Well, I look at that too, but I'm saying percent in the division. Like, yes, the people who are shooting the majors I'm shooting at are the best in the game, right? Like Mason Lane shot Mid-Atlantic last year. That's who I was going up against, right? But he's, if he's better than a GM, there should be a thing above or a thing in between or whatever. But I guess that's my issue with it, is like I want it to mean something. Like I'm not gonna, if A class is my last class, my top class, like I want it to mean something. I feel like if it's a little bit harder to obtain, like A class would mean more, B class would mean more. Like, B class, not just like, whatever, everybody starts a B class. I mean, not everybody, but that's what people say, right? No, I didn't either, but people say that, like, oh yeah, everybody starts a B class. It's like, whatever, but like, it's like, all right. Like, and we all know, like right now, if we did the new classification system, I would be high C class, you would be, I mean, we shot the classifiers a little differently, but so right now I'm not even A class in that system. I'm C class.
Yeah. And I guess
it makes more, it's more of a debate if you're not GM already, maybe.
I'm not sure how this is going to play out either, with like this gap between the new high hit factors and
that's true
the percentage changes, right? Because if they take 10% off of all the high hit factors, I mean, shoot, this is really a non-issue. Let's just go grind it out.
Well, would that be too easy?
Probably not, because you still got to shoot 6 straight or 6 out of 8.
Is it
I think people stringing that much consistency together, whether it's easy or not, is going to be tough still. Especially when you got to spread that out. Usually, if you're not shooting classifier matches, that's almost a month or 2 of matches to try and string it together and shoot good.
That's true. Yeah, because even like you have the bad classifier every so often.
Yeah.
Are you? So it is now 6 out of 8 and not 8 out of 8.
Yeah, it's still 6 out of 8.
It's currently 6 out of 8.
No, I know it's currently, but I thought the new system was your last 8. No matter what, like I would change that. I would do like a 7 out of 8, just like one. If you get one bad,
no, I'm pretty sure it's still 6 out of 8.
Okay.
All right. It is 6.
Yeah, first 4, then best 6 out of 8.
Okay, with the new system.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean I think that's fine. Then I might be shooting, and then I might be like, I would be.
But with the new system, you're still those 2 that drop off. They're eventually gonna be in there at some point. Because if they're in that 8, it's just going to keep trailing off until they're going to pop up eventually and pull you down.
Yeah, but I'm saying if I do the 6 out of my last 8, those 20% classifiers, they drop off, and obviously my average goes.
Right, but in order, when you shoot another classifier, one of your higher scores is going to drop, and then one of those other ones could pop in still.
Right, that's true. Yeah, so okay, 6 out of 8.
It'll be beneficial to people who have access to clubs that host either regular classifier matches or matches with 1 to 2 classifiers every month. Where, like, there are some people in the country who might get to a singular match every month. We're relatively blessed that, like, we can shoot 8 classifiers in 2 weeks if we really tried to push it and wanted to do that. So I don't know.
I think classifier matches will go through the roof here. I think because you'll be able to delete whatever. If you shoot a 6 classifier match, you can delete whatever you did over the last 2 months real quick.
I mean, if you make an 8 classifier match, I mean, that's like you could.
Those will fill all the time. That's just a fresh start for everybody every month if they wanted it.
Yeah.
That's an interesting thought.
What? Go ahead.
Well, you'll wipe the slate clean, right? Like, if our local club decides that they want to run a classifier match for $100 and it's 8 classifiers, I mean,
whatever you get at the end of that day is with you. Yeah.
Right. That's the advantage, I guess. I mean, there's the other issue that, like, you guys bring up a good point. There's, like, which I never thought of before. I mean, I thought of it, but not this way. Like, there is the classification system, and then there's matches. Because, like the matches, like, when you shoot a match, you're not shooting I mean, you shoot, like, 1 classifier, maybe 2, but, like, they're so different. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's just a skill set, but it's just so, I don't know. The stages are so different than classifiers.
Yeah, mentally, when I was trying to make GM, I was shooting the classifiers, like, specifically thinking of them as classifiers at matches. Now it's just a stage. Collect as many points as I can, and then if it's a GM run, it's a GM run. Yeah.
Oh, that's what I'm at. That's where I'm at only because I'm below A class. Like, when I was low B, like, but if I get close to M, I'm gonna be like, all right, like, you have to shoot them differently now. I don't like that, but yeah.
All right. Well, speaking of places where classification doesn't matter or doesn't exist, Dave and I got back last month from the U.S. Extreme, which is an IPSC match that was held at the Volusia County Gun Club in Florida. So it was ran by the Extreme team, and then the range was owned by Gorka Ibanez, who we got to meet and had pleasant interactions with. What a nice guy. So Dave, I'll let you go first here. What was your experience like? What did you like? What did you dislike?
All right, yes. Shooting my first major match, it was a lot of fun. Loved going down to Florida. We left up here, it was probably 20 degrees. We got down there, it was 80 degrees. So shooting in the warmth and the outside was a lot of fun. The match itself was good. It was challenging. Finding out the first day I was shooting against Grafel and Rakaza as opposed to I wasn't planning on doing that just because they switched divisions. That kind of changed things up a little bit.
How?
Just the immediate, probably 10% coming off your score from from not having that guy in your division to having him in your division.
Were you like more nervous, or it's just score?
Not nervous. It's just
score. Okay.
Yeah. It became tougher. Like the names we looked at before that were down there, I had a decent contention of probably being in the top 10, top 5 if I shot my best. I didn't end up shooting my best. But then having Grafel and Rakaza jump in there, I mean, that realistically that knocked everybody down 2 places automatically. They were pretty much, when they got in the division, they were locked in probably for 1 and 2 if they shot the way they usually shoot. The stage ended up being, you can ask Josh, is probably 100 degrees the opposite direction of what we planned on them being. We practiced for almost 2 months on short, choppy IPSC stages up here every week as much as we could, and we got down and they had just as much flow as any USPSA match that you'll ever attend. So we kind of had to come up with a new game plan or just kind of adjust to what we've been training for, which did make things a little bit tougher also, I would say. I don't know, what about you, Josh?
Yeah, I mean, the stages were very, very different. Like you were talking about, we trained pretty hard on short, choppy, aggressive stages, and we ended up having stages where there was a lot of flow and a lot of opportunities to take targets on the move and things like that, where we really wanted to take advantage of those opportunities. Whether or not they were good for our hit factor was a story to be talked about later, but it was certainly different than what we were expecting. And I went down there expecting to shoot against to Grafel, and I was going down there looking for the mid-60s finish. If I could shoot in 60% of Grafel, I'd be happy with that.
No, where did you end up?
I went down and did 73% of Mason Lane at the end of the day. But I didn't expect to shoot against... Well, I knew I was shooting against Mason Lane, but I expected Grafel to be shooting production and winning that division. But yeah, the stages were 180 degrees opposite. They weren't even close to what we were looking for, but crazy range though. We had rounds coming in and out of berms. We had alligators on the range. It was a good time.
Well, what was scarier?
The rounds.
Oh yeah, the rounds for sure.
I mean, just checking.
I was on. We were on what, stage 14? It was like this really short stage where you had to run straight up range, and I'm standing there. The RO gives the make ready, and I just hear of a round impacting down range of me. And I don't think it was within our shooting area, so I wasn't too worried.
Competition will get you killed, man. That's what they say.
Killed on the streets.
Killed in the bay, man. It'll get you killed in the bay.
Yeah.
But I didn't hear about anybody getting hit. I didn't hear about any cars getting hit. I don't know if you heard anything, Dave, but it's a miracle. But I don't hear anything.
What's it like shooting like over? And Josh, you've done this a bunch of times, but what's it like shooting over several days? So what was? How did you guys shoot? Like, what was your schedule?
PM, AM, PM.
Okay. So PM and AM like that, to me, like I've never done that. That sounds kind of fun. But then you have the AM, PM, which is like, I don't know. I feel like that would be torture, or you rest, or yeah. I mean, what is it like?
I liked the PM, AM, PM. Shooting over the course of 3 days, I thought it would be a little more, I don't know, like taxing. It really wasn't. And what's the normal major, Josh? 6 or 8 stages a day? This was 10 stages a day. And it was no big deal. It was a lot of fun, honestly. We woke up, got breakfast, shot, got dinner, shot, just hung out and then shot for 3 days straight. It's a lot of fun.
What are you doing in between? I mean, like,
Olive
okay.
Garden.
Yeah, but like, so yeah. Like the fun aside, like, are you doing any like match stuff in between, or is it just like I'm taking my break, or are you like gaming out? Like, are you not gaming out, but like strategically looking at the scores, looking at what's left? You know, it's hard to like improve all of a sudden, but like, make sure I'm doing this, or like, just like the mental side of it.
Yeah, I mean, after day one is kind of when we realized that we just kind of blew the, whatever it was, 40% of our points. Because we had our first 10 stages were the bulk of the points in the match. So we went back and looked at that night, kind of like looking strategically and feeling like we didn't shoot very good. We kind of realized that we weren't in a great spot with not a lot of room to make up ground the rest of the match. So yeah, the plan was to kind of like shoot and then see where we're at, shoot, see where we're at, and then make a push the last day if we were able to. But me and Josh were unfortunately kind of too far out of it even after day one to make any kind of push. So we more just became go as hard as we can if that's what we picked and see how much ground we can make up, but ultimately it wasn't going to be enough ground no matter what.
Yeah, like day one we shot 800 plus point stages, and day 2 and day 3 we saw 3 total. So
you mean 800 points together?
Yeah,
8 stages that were over 100 points on day one.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And then like 4 total in 2 days.
800 point stages. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
that's what it sounds like.
Yeah, so it was unfortunate that we didn't see that coming. I didn't even think about looking at that once I realized that the stages were wrong. Because if the matchbook had been correct to what was on the ground, even in terms of round count, it was pretty evenly spaced, but the way that the stages were laid out actually on the ground at the range really adjusted.
It was like they gave the wrong matchbook. We walked them all on Wednesday. We went back to the Airbnb to look at them on paper, and like not a single stage in the matchbook was on the ground. Like, not even close.
Yeah, and you're not saying, because like they say like don't do that because things change when it's on the ground. But you're not even saying like, oh, this target wasn't here, this target. You're saying like the round count and the start, or like everything was different.
Yeah, nothing. Like the shapes of the stages, like even just like the vibe of the stages. Even in the matchbook, they were all very much run, stop, shoot. Just that's why we prepared for it. That's what the matchbook looked like, and that's what IPSC typically is. There was nothing like that. They were all much smaller than what the matchbook led you to think they were going to be too. They were all, most of the short courses were just 1 or 2, maybe like 2 to 5 yards was the shooting area. You only take 10 steps on a smaller stage.
So for South Carolina, right? South Carolina is that next one, sectional or championship. Are you looking at the matchbook differently? I mean, are you just looking at like, oh, there's gonna be unloaded starts, weak hand, strong hand, or whatever, just weird stuff, or are you still gonna like look at the stages and hope it's about accurate?
Nah, I mean, my hope would be if they put the book out in the next couple weeks, that we'll definitely look at it and see if they give some kind of at least vibe of what the stages are going to be. But I'm going to plan on more seeing it and believing it instead of going off the matchbook. Hopefully get there the night before and walk them a little bit and make some kind of at least mental game plan overnight. But if not, just show up the day of.
Yeah, I think South Carolina is a little bit different too because we're doing it all in one day.
Mm-hmm.
So like, there's really no high point, low point zones for us to be looking at or concerned about.
Isn't there though?
Yeah, but not in a way that we're going to be able to make adjustments or we're going to be able to accept higher degrees of risk. Because other shooters will be actively shooting it, so even if it's live scored and even if we're tracking scores, we're not going to have complete enough information on a given stage to say, like, hey, I need to be riskier here, or I need to accept a higher degree of risk to try and gain points.
I think we'll have a little bit more of an idea, because I think there's 17 carry optics GMs down there. So, say just half of them shoot Saturday, and we're not shooting until Sunday. So Saturday night, we should have a decent feel of what's going on each stage. Might not know the final high hit factor on each stage, but I think we'll know probably within a couple percent of where it's going to end up. Unless somebody comes in Sunday morning with us and just blows them all out of the water, I think they'll be pretty close to where they're going to end up.
I know I'm stealing Josh's job, but like, explain you walk up to a stage and it's a 8 hit factor. You walk up to a stage and it's a 4 hit factor. I'm just throwing out numbers. What is it that you guys like now look at it and like that? Before it wasn't like, who cares? And now it's like, okay, now it's a thing.
Yeah, I think me and Josh have both been looking at more of the scientific, the analytical side of it. So I know for me, at least what I'm thinking is a 1 to 5 hit factor stage. I know I need to collect all my points. If I'm a second off pace, worst case, I'm down 5 points, but I need all my alphas if I can do that.
Why are you down 5 points? If you're second off pace, why are you down 5 points?
On a 5 hit factor stage, that comes down to points per second. So if I'm a second off pace, I lose 5 points. So if I'm 2 seconds off, I'm 10 points down.
Oh, because it's okay, right, okay.
Yeah, the hit factor breaks down to points per second.
Right, so you're right, yeah. Yeah, I don't know, but that okay. So yeah, on a 5 hit factor stage, it's an alpha per second.
Yes, you have plenty of time to make up.
Okay.
Try and run through it as clean as you can, as long as you're close to on pace. I mean, you don't want to be 10 seconds off pace, but if you can
I get it. Yeah.
take all your points within a second or 2 seconds, you're still in a good spot.
Unless
Fair,
the
Josh?
high hit factor is time and somebody got all alphas in a really fast time, right? Or is that not? So I cut you off, Josh.
No, so that's something that I'm still grappling with, because like there is known hit factor and then there's theoretical, right? So if we go onto a stage and we're like, man, this is a 6 factor stage, right? And we're looking at it with the assumption that 6 is also the theoretical max. There is some planning to be done with that to say, like, what are Charlies and Deltas worth? What's worth making up? How much visual patience do I need to prevent penalties and things like that? But on the flip side of that, if I have the ability as a shooter to push that to a 7 factor or an 8 factor, that's a way bigger achievement. And so I don't want to restrict my thoughts and of my performance necessarily to the performance of other shooters, but also there is a pretty close practical perspective where the theoretical and the known is the same, right? Like when we go to South Carolina and 47 GMs shoot this stage, right, and their hit factor is all in the 6s, the chance of me coming in and making that a 7 factor is pretty low. And so, given who's shooting it, will probably change how much credence I give that.
Right. So
if that made any sense at all.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. So it does depend on like who you're shooting against, and also who has already. Most importantly, it seems like who has already. No. So who you're shooting against, yeah, and also who has already shot. So like if there's 20 GMs or whatever. It doesn't matter. 20 GMs, 20 of the top, shooters, or 19 of them shoot a 6 hit factor stage. You're like, all right, it's a 6 hit factor. I'm going to do this, which I'm curious to know what this is. And then the 20th GM shoots it last and then makes it an 8. You're just like, oh, okay, well then, I guess it's that's what's hard. I guess you're talking about theoretical, but what does that mean? So on a 5 hit factor stage, 1 alpha is 1 second, so that's a lot. But on a 8 or 9 hit factor stage, so if you're like, explain that to me. How does that change? I don't understand it. Like,
I got it broken down mentally to like 1 to 5 is where I'm going to need to gather all my points. I'm still going as fast as I can go. Obviously, I'm not just lollygagging around, just collecting points. I'm still going as fast as I can. Sure. 6 to 10, I got to find where I do need to slow down and still collect my points, but I also have to find the spots where I do need to go fast while still shooting well. Because I can't.
6 to 10.
Yeah, 6 to 10. That's the point. Yeah, okay. So that's where I'm starting to drop a lot of points if I'm off pace. So I'm a little more concerned with pace. And then anything above 10, I know I almost have to worry about the time more than my hits. I can't shoot like complete shit. But if I'm a second off on a 10 plus hit factor stage, it's like throwing a mic in for no reason.
Okay.
So you got to be pushing it where or when you have to, at least using the hit factor roughly is what I'm finding and watching a lot of guys talk about.
Yeah, I guess it's not like sticking in my brain. Like a 10 hit factor stage is like 2 alpha per second. Which
if you're off a second, if you're down a second off the leader, it's like a mic. It's like you're taking a mic.
It's like a mic. Oh, like that. Because I'm like, in a second, I can shoot 2 alphas on any target. That's a 0.5 split or whatever. Whatever. But that's not what you're talking about. You're talking about if you're like off a second, that's 10. That's 2 out. You didn't even shoot a target, basically.
Right.
Like, okay. That's hard.
And that was sort of what we were really hammering out in the TAC lab yesterday. Was like there is in the TAC lab, man. We're doing tactical science in the TAC lab. Was the speed at which you can shoot alphas is always going to be better than the speed at which you're throwing Charlies. Like,
well, that's not what he said.
Well,
no, that's the gist we're getting at here. It's like I can continue to move my feet fast, but I don't necessarily, while I'm moving my body fast, I don't have to run the gun fast just because I'm moving fast. If I'm running fast and I have a target available for all that time, I can take as long as I need to make those shots to make sure they're all alphas, as long as I keep the efficiency up elsewhere. Where I feel like a lot of people are losing their time is they'll kind of run hard to a spot, hose with, say they're hosing with 0.15 splits. The shooting's definitely degrading, especially with like a carry optics gun. Your shooting's degrading if you're shooting probably 7+ yards under 0.2 splits. There's no way you're guaranteeing you're all alphas at that point. Mm-hmm. So you're shooting worse. Then you have to get yourself back up to speed, get to your next spot, stop, shoot, probably not that good, continue on. If you can blend it all together smoothly, if you can run through a whole course with 0.25 split, 0.25 transition, 0.25 split, 0.25 transition, and just consistently keep the gun running while you're shooting at a comfortable, like almost all alphas pace, it's going to end up mathematically better almost every time is what me and Josh are finding.
Yeah, because when we look at hit factor, right, like let's call it an 8 factor just for the math here, right?
Okay.
A Charlie is going to cost you 0.25 seconds. So like Steve Anderson calls it to prevent or correct time. So there is no... He calls it the time to prevent or correct. So if you could add 0.25 to your split on an 8-factor stage to guarantee it's an alpha, it's worth it. And so let's say you're splitting 0.2 and it's a Charlie, a 0.45 split for an alpha would be equivalent. And all of us from B class up could split faster than that.
No way. Oh, well, no.
So whatever your split is for that Charlie, add 0.25 or 0.24, and if you can make it an alpha in 0.24, you come out ahead mathematically.
For an 8-factor stage, I had the hit factor has to be. Are you sure it's 8? Is 8 or is 8 just a random
I'm just
number?
using 8 as a hypothetical because the math works out nicely.
Okay, so 8 might not be okay. Gotcha. All right, but 8 might not be the actual like realistic number, but I get it for practical use. That is interesting. It would be interesting to know what the number actually is.
Well, pick any hit factor. A Charlie is losing in minor 2 points, right? Mm-hmm. And so if it's a 10 hit factor, that's 1/5 of a second. 2 points is equivalent to 1/5.
Right. So then, yeah, as it gets higher, maybe like the extra time you take to take the alpha is not. But I mean, you could also talk about like even that's a crazy example, the 0.2 versus 0.45. But like even like 0.2 versus 0.25, like. I mean, depending on the target, 0.25 is very doable.
Well, that's what Dave and I are figuring out is like when we take that approach to shooting, we aren't shooting 0.45 splits, right? No. We're going from like 1/8s, 1/9s, 2s to 2/8s and 3s. And the difference between a 0.2 split and a 0.3 split to make sure it's an alpha is worth it every single time.
As long as you keep your efficiency up elsewhere, as long as your transitions are good and you're still moving around the stage efficiently, you can shoot at a more comfortable pace to shoot better. But you can shoot. You're shooting slower, obviously. You're not trying to slow down and get your hits like people always say don't do that. But you're shooting at a more comfortable pace to more guarantee your hits.
I mean, you are slowing down. I mean, I fucking hate these like sayings. I get what you're saying.
My mindset is not to slow down, though. I'm still with my body going as fast as I can. I'm just taking more of I'm taking 2 acceptable sight pictures instead of 1 and aggressively ripping at it.
You're taking a longer amount of time equals going slower.
To collect more points, though, overall.
But like,
how many
times do we shoot matches and we see B and C class shooters that are shooting 0.2 splits for Alpha Charlie or Charlie Delta, and it's like, yeah, that's not going to work well. Like that the math just doesn't math there. So this isn't me like consciously slowing down. I'm not saying I need to be slower here. What I'm saying is like I need to hold myself accountable to the sight picture 100% of the time because the math doesn't work if I don't.
However, like you say, if somebody can do what you guys are saying, but do it at 0.19 splits, then it's like, all right, like maybe like your goal, like is that fair to say? Your goal right now is 0.25, okay? But if you can do it at 0.23, I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but over time it does add up.
Yep.
That's the goal. It's just like whatever the goal, like if it's, 0.02 splits would be the best, right? Like, I mean, that's not possible necessarily, but.
Yeah, just to say, the best of the best are doing, I think what me and Josh are talking about, just they're doing it better. They're shooting at their comfortable all alpha pace. It's just a little faster than where we're currently at.
Did you, for the extreme, did they sync the timers?
Sometimes not.
Okay. Did you
the
look at that at all?
The officiating was less than superb.
The officiating was really bad, Tom.
All right, I will say that sometimes I try to sync the timer and it doesn't let me. So it could also.
I don't think they care if the timer synced at all.
Well, they did sometimes.
They barely cared if the guns were downrange.
Oh my god! All right. Did you look at that though? Do you look at that with like after like video, or are we not there yet?
Good.
So yeah, I looked at it a little bit, but unfortunately, it told me that I was slower in every single category, which is about what I would expect from Mason Lane. Is to beat me everywhere.
No, but not compared to Mason Lane. I get that you're slower than Mason Lane, of course. But for you, like, did you look at this stage was this hit factor, this was my time, these were my splits, transitions, blah blah blah, reload, draw. Did you look at it that way?
Not in the lens that we're currently talking about.
Okay.
This sort of realization is something that like I knew mathematically, like I knew it made sense in my head, but actually applying it and being disciplined enough to apply it to a stage after the buzzer is like something that is a new breakthrough for me. So I will be doing that moving forward, but it's not something I had in my head at that time.
Did you do that, Dave, or no?
Yeah, I looked at it a lot. what I found, I was most of the time I was between 1 and like 3 seconds off of Griffel on pace, and most of the stages I probably lost at least half of that on the swinger. What I found is a lot of him and JJ were taking the swingers on one pass. They were such weird swingers. They were over the top, but you could kind of see them on the side also. They were getting them all in one pass, and I think I shot, if there was 30 swingers, I probably shot 28 of them on 2 passes or 3 passes sometimes.
No, I saw that. That was pretty nuts.
So I felt pretty good about the pace that I was moving. My shooting needs to be better at that pace, but I think what we're working on is going to help with that. But it feels decent knowing that just that one part of my game was what was setting me back most of my pace.
Gotcha. Okay.
There's other stuff to say about the second and a half on most stages, but half the time being wasted.
What about the points? What about the points? Were you there on the points?
No, I was not putting bullets where I needed them to go at all.
All right.
That was a universal experience for double tap at US Extreme.
Mm-hmm.
We had bullets in barrels. We had bullets in berms. We had bullets in deltas.
What are you talking? Okay.
They were going everywhere. Other people's bullets were going everywhere. Our bullets were going everywhere.
You guys were the guys shooting through the berms. I got it. Somehow it ricocheted and came back at you, and you're like, oh.
Yeah, I shot more mics in the first day than I think I have in my recorded match history for like the past 3 months.
Is that because you were like amped up? It's IPSC, it's the extreme, it's against people in the world, some people in the world, I guess. What was that?
I mean, straight silly gooseness, honestly. Like most of my misses were within 5 yards. Like they were 5-yard open targets that I just sent rounds over the shoulder for no reason.
Was it like because a lot of the stages were short? Like this seems like almost too. I mean, I saw some of the stages.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them looked hard. Like the steel far away. The steel was pretty small far away. Like that looked like a hard shot, but people weren't like going crazy. But there were a lot of stages where you just like ran in a line forward, and all the targets were like basically lined up. And like, was it just like this should be like? How is this so? Like this is like looks like an easy stage. Let me just like go nuts.
So the mics that I took on the first day were like drive-by targets almost, where like I was trying to make 2 positions blend, and so I had to shoot this target on the move to blend them. And what I've since learned is that was silly. But at the time, I was taking these targets on the move, and so I was increasing the difficulty of that target in an attempt to save myself a position when I could have just shot it later in the stage and just stand delivered on it and guaranteed 2 alpha.
Yeah, like there was one, it's going to be hard to describe on here, but it was really long across the back, and it had just a little, probably like a 4-foot cutout up that made the shooting a ton easier. That we made it so much harder on ourselves than we needed to. We stayed along the back, and we kind of shot it walking the whole time. Then we go back and watch the video of Griffel. He just stands in one corner, runs up to the front, and then runs up to the back corner, shoots it like very comfortably standing each position, where we tried to blend probably however many targets into 15-yard shots while moving.
And you slowed down because it's a hard, or maybe not.
The shooting degraded because we're shooting on the move for no reason now. We're shooting farther than we need to, and the angles are tougher just because we thought that it would be more efficient to keep moving. Like we were making some of them harder than they needed to be, just trying to over efficient them.
Right.
And the real easy ones, going back to what you said, it's like if you're standing there in front of an easy stage, you know there's some of the best shooters in the world that are shooting around you. You know that it's easy for them as well. So you need you need to push probably your max speed and shoot all alphas. And then generally, if you're going to stand there and mentally say, okay, I'm going to push it right now, it almost never goes well in most sports, I think. If you say, I'm going to dial it up right now in the middle of the game, it almost never works.
Yep. All right.
But we learn. We sure did. So that was the big sort of training value, or not value, but training focus that I had coming off of US Extreme was like, one, simplifying stage plans, like make it dumb, run hard, shoot aggressive, and then the second part is like when I'm shooting aggressively, that doesn't mean accept Charlies. It means run hard, get set up earlier, move the gun quickly. But when I'm actually pulling the trigger, it needs to be an alpha on pretty much every target. And if I do something weird and I input the gun in a weird way that gives me a Charlie, I have to be willing to accept that. But I should not be pulling the trigger on sight pictures that have a high probability of being Charlies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just better see the value of points. The best guys in the world are not going to give up many points, so we really should not be giving up many points either if we're trying to chase them down. If they're not giving up points and we're trying to chase them, we definitely can't give up.
Well, what about that makes sense to me. But what about also like they're not giving up a lot of points and they're going fast? What about the like? And maybe this is I'm a different class and different like skill level, so it's like. And maybe I am doing it wrong too, but it's like, all right, well, let me push the speed because that's what I need, and then the points will eventually come. My brain will get used to the speed and catch up. But I mean, I know the match isn't like the place to do that, but I mean, I would think that goes in the back of your head of like, I could get all alphas on this stage, but maybe it'll be like, I don't know, 2 seconds slower. I'm just making up a number, but
yeah, I think that's part of like what we're talking about, like what you just said. Like I can't go to a level that I'm not at, especially at a major match, and expect results. Like I need to hammer that in practice, and then I have to shoot as whatever my best capability is that match. And if it's not the best one there, then so be it. I'll know where I'm at, and then we have to build up more while we're practicing. But I think trying to do anything new or outside of what you're actually capable of or what you've done before at a match is not going to work. But if you're in position like. Say you're on the last day of like a 2 or 3 day match, and you're in a position that if you do push, you can win, and you're okay maybe dropping from like your second or third place spot to try and push for the win by going for it, you could say, then yeah, that might be the time to try and go for it. But I still don't know. It's a risk reward thing, depending on who you're chasing and how you're chasing them.
So what have you guys done? I mean, I know I'm like pushing it now, but what have you guys done? Because that's what I do, right? I mean, I'm a low level person, but so. Like, how do you stay disciplined? I'm just going to shoot the best that I'm at. It's hard because you're like, I want to shoot the best that I'm at because that's where I'm at. But I also, like, I'm not winning matches, but I'm still competitive. I still want to win A class or, whatever. And then you balance that. Or you're just like, I shoot the best I'm at. I see, like you said, like it sounds so simple. I'm not doing it. What do you say in your head? How do you get that like out of your head? Like, I just want to go. I just want to beat everybody.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what got me down there. Since I've never shot a major match before, it was okay. I want to push. I want to win because I'm supposed to win because I'm a good shooter, right? So it's like now having more of a mindset or a match mindset of knowing that I need to shoot just the best of what I'm capable of right now. I think will be able to give me more consistency, and I think shooting consistently at a pretty high level on all the stages is going to be a lot more beneficial than first on 4 of the stages and 30th on the other 6. Like if you can put consistent, 5, 6, 7 place runs on every stage, I think that's going to leave you in a lot better spot. I just use the numbers randomly, whatever it is, 2, 3, 4, whatever it is, consistently through the whole match, shooting at whatever your current highest level is going to be a lot better than trying to push on some stages up and then hold back on other stages. Just pick whatever your best, most efficient game plan is for you on each stage to get all your points in the quickest amount of time that you're capable of right now. And I think that's going to land you in a better spot more often than not.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting.
Like Graffel's proving that consistency wins matches. Like he's obviously the best, but he does the exact same thing on every stage. He does it the quickest or pretty close to the quickest, and he collects all the points.
Like we'll see if this holds up in a major. Like we're making these breakthroughs in practice, and we're learning how it plays out with the hit factor math. But like the proof is going to be at the end of the month when we go to South Carolina, and to see if we can hold ourselves accountable mentally under the pressure of a major. Dave's division will obviously see a lot more heat than mine. So, we're going to have to...
That's weird. I never would have thought of that.
That's crazy.
Yeah, like the Iron Sight divisions have a lack of participation.
Yeah, nobody wants to shoot a gun that requires a lack of fun.
Who would want to drive? Who would want to drive 12 hours to shoot tuxedos at 30 yards with just a fiber optic?
I mean, you make it sound really good.
Yeah, no, it's
one thing
to
turn around and say,
point.
okay, my dot turned off, but like, oh my god, my fiber optic just fell out.
Hey, I've had that happen. But like figuring out how to hold ourselves to this in a major match, I think will be a completely different experience too. Like I'm not silly enough to say that like we figured out in practice I will have a 100% execution on this in a match.
Oh yeah.
I think it'll be a continuous struggle, but it is a far bigger part of my thought process going into shooting now. And like, again, I'm going back to it because I was real bricked up yesterday after our experience in the TAC lab.
Oh my God. Is this an X-rated podcast?
I guess so. But it was cool to score those practice stages and see hit factors that I didn't think were theoretically possible on the stage. Like if you had asked me to calculate what the hit factor of the stage is just off the top of my head, I would not have been giving you the numbers that Dave and I were getting by executing on shooting points as fast as we can.
Yeah.
But not giving up the points.
Yeah, I think it showed a lot, too, that it's much easier to... It's not easy to shoot all alphas, but what we did yesterday made it a lot more reasonable to move through a stage shooting all alphas with all those no-shoots we had on the targets.
Yeah, you got to explain that, since like we know, but you had IPSC A zone and the C and D zone was a no-shoot. You had same thing with USPSA target. You even have the one USPSA target where the A zone was cut in half, so you basically had a triangle in the A zone, and everything else was a no-shoot. So that one was hard. The other ones, you're like, well, you should be shooting in the alpha. They just look scary because if I miss, it's not a Charlie anymore. It's a no-shoot.
Right. What I found is like if those force you to have visual focus on where you want the bullets to go. It's not just a big brown target anymore. And if you saw, we had all different. We probably had, as far as levels of shooter, I'm not sure what Todd is. Maybe a C or D class, all the way up to me shooting.
Todd is B.
He might be B or C even, but
B or C, yeah.
Basically, we had the whole spectrum in there shooting at those targets, and there was not many shots that were more than an inch outside or an inch into the no shoot, just because of the high level of focus they were putting, or visual focus they were putting on those targets. Versus if that's a brown target, just a full brown target, the whole target's full of holes. Each target probably had a couple hundred holes in it, and if there was 500 holes in each target, probably 25 no shoots on each, just barely into the no shoots.
Yeah, compared to those open targets that we were shooting deltas
and we weren't
on.
shooting them close. We weren't shooting like just layup shots. They were 10, 12 yards trying to keep pace on a stage with everybody else. It wasn't like we were just standing there going as slow as we can. Everyone was punching two alphas on that one target, less than 25% of the A zone on a USPSA target pretty easily.
That's true.
So it just goes to show if you can pick a small spot and just really focus at a match on where you want your bullets to go, it's not an overwhelmingly slow process to put two holes in the A zone.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to like what we were talking about earlier, and what you guys have always said. Like to me, like there's obviously like gun skills that I need to develop, but like I am starting to believe. I thought this was kind of BS, but I'm starting to believe that it is like more and more mental because, again, like I show up to a match, I want to finish. Win A class or finish top 5, whatever, whoever shows up. And at the same time, like I want to just go. So sometimes there's different matches, but I know that if I just try to shoot above my skill, and I'm not doing it intentionally, like I'm not doing, okay, I'm going to use this as a training thing, right? I like get disappointed because I look at my match result and I'm like, that's not where. It's not like I shouldn't be there, but it's like it's not true skill. But you could also count it because my mental skill's not there. So you could say that is your true skill. But I will try to do that a lot more. I've tried to do that actually on classifiers, but which is a little weird.
Yeah, that's why I like the classification system. Whatever it is, it'll give you some kind of benchmark of who you're shooting against at each match. So it's like you should be trying to go to every match, in my opinion, and then your A class. So your goal should be to kick the shit out of every other A class carry optic shooter there. And then once you can do that, maybe your skill set will lead you more. And once you can do that consistently, your skill set should hopefully follow to lead you into an M class classification. And then your next goal is just to beat all the M class guys. Like it's kind of like golf. Like if you guys did golf or know about golf, like your handicap keeps you playing against the people that you're supposed to be playing with based off your skill level.
Okay, I didn't know that.
So it's like if Liam, where we work, he shouldn't be going to the matches expecting to beat the best shooters. Like it's just he should be expecting to beat the other people that shoot like him And once he can do that consistently, then he should probably maybe look to make his push, or his skill set will have developed enough to kind of push him up on his own. What do you think about that, Josh?
Yeah, especially with the participation trophy theory.
Yeah, so I kind of disagree. I hate disagreeing with you, Dave. Sorry.
That's fine.
But
one of us the GM, one of us the GM, one's M class. That's
fine. But you didn't get the full breadth of the classification experience.
How was it in D class?
It was great. I loved it.
You were not D class.
No, I started in C. But
okay.
I guess I don't agree with the premise that shooters should be comparing themselves. Like, bad shooters should not be comparing themselves against other bad shooters. And when they beat bad shooters, there should not be a trophy involved.
Oh my god! You're saying
well, I don't want them to have a trophy.
No, it's not about dude. It's not about having trophies.
Like, I want them not to try and chase or push themselves to chase. If Tom showed up Thursday doesn't count. It need a bigger skill set. If our gal Nadine, if she showed up and her only goal was to beat me or you every Thursday night, she would stop having fun. I think at some point pretty quickly.
Yeah, and I guess that's a very different perspective than what I have in practical shooting. Like, and I get it. I'm weird here. Most people are doing this to have fun. Like, I find the fun in practical shooting and being to push myself to be a more technically proficient shooter. Like, my fun is found in the improvement and in the breakthroughs and in the training process. My fun is not necessarily in the performance. So, like, when I get beat by Mason Lane, I'm not writing it off that Mason Lane is just better than me in every way, shape, and form, and thus I will always lose to him. When I get beat by Mason Lane, I'm looking for, like, why? What is he doing differently? I'm watching his match videos. Like, what is missing fundamentally? Because that stuff is obtainable. Like, right. He is not a superhuman. You and I are not superhumans. Like, the only thing that separates us functionally from someone like Tom in A class is the mental fortitude to hold themselves accountable to specific things and to track the site fast enough. And I think those two.
Right, I think you're kind of leading into kind of what I said though, because you being M class and Mason Lane being GM in production, you're chasing the next level up. So it's like, if a C-class shooter is trying to chase down a GM, he's going to be looking to probably save, 10 seconds on a stage. He's going to be off pace by a lot. So he's going to be looking for improvements in his game to catch up to that are probably not even possible to make such big jumps. If Tom picks out, or whoever, if someone starts at the bottom of A-class and their goal is to scratch to the top of A-class, they're going to immediately find those small problems to shave off the little chunks I think that they need, as opposed to trying to shave off 5 seconds at a time, which isn't coming. Then once they've done that with this class, then they can pick out their next target, shave off the time they need to get to that target. Like what you just said is kind of, I guess we're kind of saying the same thing. Because if you're chasing Mason Lane, you're not trying to shave 2 seconds off at a time. I think you're trying to chip away small things throughout your entire game that will add up to 2 seconds.
Yeah, but like I've been chasing Mason Lane since C class.
Exactly. That's different. That's different.
Yeah, I mean, it's not though. I was a C class shooter shooting 80%.
No, I'm saying that is different. You like made a commitment and you're chasing the best. Whoever that is, you're chasing the that's. I'm not saying it's weird. I'm just saying it's different. Like, you're making that commitment. That's your goal. That's like your thing. I know people say. I think this is bullshit. The thing that people say where they're like anybody can be GM, I think is bullshit. Not everybody can play in the NBA, and not everybody can be as good as people who play in the NBA. And just they just didn't make it because they they didn't show up to tryouts or whatever. Like, there's definitely a mental aspect of it, which also takes development. But there's just skill, man. There's just skill. Like, we can't all be GM, or we would all be GM. Like, I don't. You could have some people practice for every day, and I would not say like, oh, that person's a GM. Like, there's just so. I think what Dave's saying, like, if you're C class or you're B class, and you're doing it for fun, it's not your career, right? But that might be like your ceiling. Like, you do have to have some hand strength, some eye coordination, some some movement ability, some some reload abilities, you can develop those. But I just think like I think to say that anybody can make GM if they practice hard enough is just like it like waters down GM. Like if you're a C class and you practice every day, you should probably be at A class. But after that, like there's a different skill set in my opinion. Like, or people say A and M is like sort of similar, but I don't know. I just don't believe that. I don't believe that anybody can make GM if they practice hard enough. You are good at it.
I'm sure there's factors. Like if there's like age or like physical restrictions that prevent them from
I'm not
doing
even
things,
saying that.
I agree, but
I'm not even saying that.
Why is this thing like?
I disagree.
Huh? I don't know. It's a little thumbs up popped up on my screen.
Did you do this or something?
No.
Oh.
All
right. Yeah, if you're old or you're a disability, no, everybody agrees. I'm just saying, like, I could be one of those people. If I am like lucky enough to win the lottery and I can shoot every day, that doesn't guarantee. I mean, in a productive way, not just like randomly. I'm not guaranteed to make GM. Will I improve? Yes. I don't know where I would improve. Maybe I'd just be a good A class shooter.
But I can tell you, no GM thinks that way. They didn't think that way before they were GM.
Yeah, I that's fine. I'm not saying I think that, like, I do. I mean, I believe that, but I mean, I personally think if I shot every day, I could make GM. But who knows if that's the reality? Just because I think it doesn't mean it's going to happen. Maybe I just high M class or low M class.
But like those are, like that's a mental image of your own performance. That's not necessarily restrictive of what you or indicative of what you could do. I mean, you could be a national champion.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Next year.
But like we don't.
Next year. Right? This year. What are you doing?
Oh, right. This year.
I
forgot.
I mean, Joey Sauerland has a quote that, like, I think it was originally attributed to Steve Anderson.
He has a task on his own.
Does he actually?
It's on his bucket. No, you.
Josh, yeah.
Yeah, let me just...
nice.
No, but essentially he said the only thing you have to do to be a national champion is to outwork the current national champion.
Yes.
Like, work harder than those guys and then go do it. And, and I don't think that is restrictive on an individual basis. I think that is a universal truth that if you work harder than the other people in this sport, you will win. And there are restrictions in life.
Some people cannot dedicate that much time of their life to work harder than the best shooters in the world. Like, very few people, if anybody, can dedicate more time in their life than Griffel to shooting. Very few people can dedicate more of their time than Joey Sauerland. So someone in that position, it's not that he started there, but someone in the position where their life is shooting now, it's probably very easy to say, if you shoot more, you'll be better.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Okay, my job's to shoot. Just do that. If you just quit your job, shoot all day, get rid of your wife and kids, you'll be a GM.
Of course, you'll get better.
Yeah.
I just don't know if you. I mean, maybe
People want to know how they can do it by shooting a couple days a week, live fire, and then dry fire and the rest, because that's what the average guy is trying to do, and that's how they're trying to do it from. Like Tom, I would say, is taking a very average approach. Shoots multiple times a week, dry fires multiple times a week, but can't really, especially like family and stuff, doesn't have the time to put 5,000 rounds down range every week.
No, God, no.
See, I don't think that's average. I think that is an above average level of dedication to the sport, because there are thousands.
I would say for someone trying to make GM, I would say that's probably average.
Oh, for someone trying to make GM, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, because we're talking
about I know where you were going. Yeah, it's people that just shoot matches, and that's what they shoot.
Mm-hmm.
So the moral of the story here is we just have to train better and more efficiently,
which we're working on.
In the TAC lab.
We got to get there more.
Why do you love the TAC?
I love the TAC lab.
No, I'm trying to get better. Yeah.
All right, guys. We are past the hour mark. Do we have any closing thoughts?
No.
You want to promote something, Josh? Maybe your glasses company?
Yeah, so this program is a production of Double Tap Dynamics, which is sponsored by a number of great companies that Dave will now list.
You can't put me on the spot like that.
Got him.
All right. I am personally sponsored by two great companies. Goliath Defense for all of your holsters, and then Warhorse Ordnance for belts and soft goods. You can use code SHOOTMORE for 15% off of both of those websites.
Yep, and then also everyone's kind of covered under, everyone on the team's covered by LOK Grips and Brass Monkey bullets.
All right.
Chocolates. A little bit of chocolates in there.
Chocolates is not a official sponsor. We do love our chocolates, though.
I do love to sniff the chocolates. Yes. Oh,
Very
you're not
grippy.
supposed to sniff it. Oops.
Super griffy. All right, guys. I guess we'll have to put the hammer down and holster on this one, but that's all
Nice.
we've got for tonight. We hope
did
to
it.
see you on the next one, and thanks for sticking around.